Affiliated Distributors Limited.
The time by Caracris is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible.
MSME procurement, relief extended and a landmark deal sealed. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Friday, July 17, 2026. I'm Rondine Williams. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, the government sets firm rollout dates for Jamaica's MSME procurement program, bringing small businesses closer to public sector contracts. Also ahead, Angola extends its relief measures for another 3 months as rising global costs continue to pressure businesses. And later, the European Union and India conclude a landmark free trade agreement aimed at deepening economic ties. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with government procurement and new opportunities for Jamaica's small businesses. The government has announced implementation timelines for key elements of its micro, small and medium enterprises MSME procurement set-aside program, marking a shift from policy commitments to execution. Speaking at the Small Business Association of Jamaica SBAJ Growth and Resilience Conference 2026 on Thursday, Finance Minister Favour Williams says a public procurement commission is expected to publish the official list of eligible MSMEs by the end of this month.
I am delighted to announce that the Public Procurement Commission will be rolling out the MSME list by the end of July 2026. You have been registering for the procurement set-aside. You have been making yourselves known to the government. We want you, when the portal is opened at the end of July 2026, to ensure you check the list to make sure you're on it and that your information is correct.
The government also expects to issue guidance notes to ministries, departments, and agencies by the end of next month.
I'm also delighted to announce that the MIIC and the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service are expected to roll out guidance notes to procuring entities by the end of August of this year. And you may be asking, what is a guidance note? Within government, it is an official document issued to ministries, departments, and agencies to explain specific procedures, and in this instance, it will be the procedures to activate the procurement set aside on behalf of the small businesses all across Jamaica.
That was Jamaica's Finance Minister, Favour Williams. The government says it is moving to strengthen its negotiating team as discussions continue over the future of the Jamaica Public Service Company's JPS electricity license. The disclosure came in Parliament this week after opposition leader Mark Golding questioned why international legal expertise was not secured from the outset of what he described as one of the country's most significant commercial negotiations.
Where are we in the negotiating process? If they are not yet on board or haven't been on board, what has been the objective of the process of negotiation thus far relative to what they will be bringing to the table when they come on board? Because one would have thought that in embarking on this, you would have had them in place from the start. If you're, to set the parameters of a negotiation and ensure that issues which perhaps the technical people within the GOJ may not have considered, but they would be aware of by the virtue of their international expertise, could have been part of the framing of the overall parameters of the negotiating process.
That was Jamaica's opposition leader, Mark Golding. Responding, Energy Minister Darrell Vall says the government has completed an initial technical support phase and is now seeking cabinet approval for a second phase.
We have already engaged in one phase, technical assistance, which has now, that phase has expired. We're now moving to another phase, so we're seeking to get cabinet approval to proceed on the second phase of the technical. We are looking at the possibility of financial advisors to give us the various options and suite of options that we have. And last but not least, despite the fact that we have very competent and able people at the Attorney General's chambers, we are also seeking, through them, to identify outside legal technical assistance who is going to work with the AG's department to make sure that we have a team that is competent to go to the table with the best of the best. I can say to you, we are aware that we have one here. And we are not thinking about this in isolation.
That was Jamaica's Energy Minister, Darrell Vall. Meanwhile, the Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, is urging Jamaica's utility providers to accelerate investment in their digital customer service platforms after identifying shortcomings in how customer issues are handled online. OUR Director of Consumer and Public Affairs Yvonne Nicholson urged the utilities companies to do more to improve their digital customer service channels. Her comments follow findings from the regulator's 2025 mystery shopping study.
We're urging service providers to improve their digital channels so that they can better manage issues end to end. For example, we'd want them to enable full case resolution through mobile apps, and this should include matters such as customer refunds, payment clarifications, contract termination application, and service requests. We'd also want them to allow customers to upload documents, track requests, and receive status updates through various digital portals.
That was OUR Director of Consumer and Public Affairs, Yvonne Nicholson. In other news, NCB Capital Markets has arranged a $600 million Jamaican dollar corporate bond for fuel retailer Fesco, providing financing to support the company's expansion while strengthening its balance sheet. The 4-year bond will refinance existing debt, extend Fesco's debt maturity profile, and provide additional working capital as the company continues to grow its retail fuel network. The transaction marks the latest in a series of capital raised arranged by NCB Capital Markets since leading Fesco's junior market listing in 2021, followed by bond issues totaling 1.7 billion Jamaican dollars in 2022. Fesco says the proceeds will help finance new company-operated and dealer-oriented service stations, including the development of Fesco's Oval on Spanish Town Road. The company expects to add 3 more dealer-oriented stations before the end of 2026, increasing its network to 26 locations across Jamaica. We go now to updates from the Bank of Jamaica on how the currency markets traded today. In Friday's currency trading session, the US dollar is selling for $159.51, the Canadian for $113.78, the pound sterling for $213.85, while the going rate for the euro is $186.90. Moving now to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Friday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 115 stocks, of which 41 advanced, 46 declined, and 28 traded firm. Leading today's winners are Knutsford Express Services, Jamaica Public Service Company 9.5%, Caribbean Assurance Brokers, and Cygnus Real Estate Finance USD. While leading the losers are Margaritaville Turks, Elite Diagnostic, Cargo Handlers, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances. Now the main index advanced by 330.69 points to close at 361,929.37 points. The junior market index, however, declined by 21.23 points to close at 2,988.96 points.
It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
In today's Market Education feature, we're talking about business valuation. Business valuation is the process of determining the economic value of a company. It is commonly used during mergers and acquisitions, ownership changes, tax planning, and certain legal matters. To estimate a company's value, professional asset factors such as its financial performance, assets, liabilities, cash flow, and future earning potential. There is no single method for valuing a business. The approach used depends on the company's industry, the purpose of the valuation, and the information available.
That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please do stay with us. The regional news is up next.
News is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Are so much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
Welcome back, and now for the regional business news. Businesses in Anguilla will continue to receive government protection from higher global energy costs after lawmakers approve a 3-month extension of temporary fuel relief measures. Under the extension, several measures, including import duties and customs service charges on diesel and gasoline, will remain suspended. Premier Cora Richardson Hodge further outlined what the extension will include and why the government believes the measures remain necessary.
Today, we passed in the House of Assembly an extension for all of those measures. So for the cost insurance free to free on board, that has been extended by another 3 months.
I'm sure the people of Anguilla will be very happy to hear that.
I think people were eagerly awaiting that information, and so we passed it in the House of Assembly today. We also would have continued the relief of removing the customs fee, as well the service fee, as well as the import duty on gasoline and diesel, and that has allowed a decrease in costs at the tank and when you purchase like your cooking gas, etc.
She says the government will also be analyzing whether the relief measures can continue beyond the current extension.
So the question moving forward is, some persons, I think all of us have gotten a question, well, should they remain permanent, etc. These are all measures, and I want to highlight that the government is taking a loss over these 6 months in terms of our revenue. We're doing so for a particular purpose, to assist the people of Anguilla, but at some point in time, we cannot continue to maintain it indefinitely. Because if we maintain it indefinitely, we run the risk of eroding the tax base. So that's the kind of assessment that we now have to undertake. To what extent is the tax base eroded? Are we concerned with respect to that? Can we, and is it sustainable?
That was Anguilla's Premier, Cora Richardson Hodge. Antigua and Barbuda is positioned in maritime registry as a trusted destination for international shipowners, arguing that strong governance can be a competitive advantage in the global shipping industry. Speaking at the Global Maritime Security and Sanctions Enforcement Symposium recently, Prime Minister Gaston Brown says the country's shipping registry has strengthened its reputation through sustained investments.
Over the years, Adams has built a reputation as one of the world's most respected international shipping registries. That reputation has not been achieved by chance. It has been earned through sustained investment in regulatory oversight, technological innovation, professional expertise, and a culture of continuous improvement, and I'll add here, strong leadership. Recognizing that maritime threats evolve rapidly, Adams has consistently strengthened its compliance systems, enhanced its due diligence procedures, and refined its risk assessment methodologies. These efforts have enabled us to significantly reduce regulatory exposure while reinforcing the integrity and credibility of our registry. Our experience has demonstrated a simple but powerful truth. Strong compliance frameworks are not obstacles to growth. They are prerequisites for sustainable growth and certainly for good governance.
That was Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown. Ghana's government is defending the right of public officials to own private businesses, arguing that such interests are permissible as long as they do not create conflicts with their official responsibilities. Attorney General Anil Nandalal has rejected criticism surrounding President Dr. Irfin Ali's farming interests, saying there is no law or code of conduct that prohibits ministers or presidents from operating private businesses.
There is no law. There is no code of conduct. There is no regulation which stipulates that a member of government can't have a business while he holds the office of government or office of a minister or the president or the presidency. I have business interests once they do not conflict with my governmental activities. Then there's nothing wrong with that.
The Attorney General also dismissed calls for a commission of inquiry into the controversy.
Imagine a man wakes up one morning and he discovers that I own those properties. And he makes them public, creating the impression that I acquired them while I was in office. And then, another one who wants to obviously get his name in the newspapers and want to jump on some populist bandwagon, calls on a commission of inquiry, calls for a commission of inquiry. I have to subject myself to a commission of inquiry because you concoct a scandal? What are you inquiring into?
That was Ghana's Attorney General Anil Nandalal. And finally, the Nevis Island Administration is proposing a series of legislative changes aimed at updating the territory's corporate and financial services framework. 4 amendment bills received their first reading in the Nevis Island Assembly. They include changes to the company's ordinance, the Nevis Business Corporation Ordinance, the Nevis Limited Liability Company Ordinance, and the Nevis International Banking Ordinance. The measures could have implications for companies operating in the jurisdiction, particularly those using Nevis's international financial services sector. Of the four, the proposed International Banking Ordinance Amendment Bill is the most significant, as it seeks to strengthen the function and powers of the regulator responsible for overseeing international banks. The bills were introduced for first reading this week, meaning the proposed changes have not yet been debated or approved. Further stages in the legislative process are expected before any amendments become law. And it's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 20 securities, of which 4 advanced, 4 declined, and 12 traded firm. Today's winners are the West Indian Tobacco Company, Massey Holdings, National Enterprises, and First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, while leading the losers are National Flour Mills, A.S. Braden & Sons Holdings, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, and the Grace Kennedy Limited. Now, trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All TNT Index declined by 2.55 points to close at 1,456.77. The Composite Index also declined but by 1.43 points to close at 1,018.71. The Cross-Listed Index dropped 0.03 points to close at 77.03, while the SME Index remained at 81.05. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
This project marks the celebration of our 30th Hall of Fame and aims to highlight the achievements, challenges, and invaluable lessons of those who have shaped and are shaping the future of our economy. Our aim is to celebrate the voices and stories of 30 remarkable leaders in Jamaica's private sector. Join us as we explore these narratives of resilience, leadership, and vision.
Welcome back, and now for the international news. The European Union, EU, and India have affirmed plans to deepen economic ties after concluding negotiations on what officials described as a landmark free trade agreement. Speaking at the third EU-India Trade and Technology Council meeting in Brussels on Wednesday, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal described the proposed agreement as fair and balanced, saying it would create new opportunities for businesses and consumers on both sides.
This free trade agreement is fair, equitable, and balanced, truly a win-win agreement for EU, businesses in EU, India, businesses, and the people of India. The partnership between EU and India has come of age. Prime Minister Modi termed it a partnership for global good. Today's discussions reaffirmed our shared vision for an innovation-driven, trusted, and future-ready growth partnership.
The Indian minister says the council has now shifted from negotiation to implementation, with both partners working to diversify supply chains and strengthen cooperation.
The TTC has helped us move from discussions to delivery. Both EU and India are committed to de-risking our dependencies on certain critical areas. We are both committed to build reliable and diversified supply chains. We are committed to ensuring that our work is outcome-oriented, whether it is in market access, whether it is in harmonizing standards, working towards operationalizing key supply chain imperatives, and for greater collaboration in deep tech startups, innovation ecosystem, industrial partnerships, advanced manufacturing, connectivity, particularly with reference to global turbulence in this regard, and overall building strong partnerships through our global capability centers.
That was India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. Meanwhile, fresh data suggests inflationary pressures across the euro area continue to ease. Eurozone inflation slowed in June, providing further evidence that price pressures are easing across the currency bloc. Annual inflation was confirmed at 2.8%, down from 3.2% in May, and the lowest reading since February. The moderation came as energy price pressures began easing following earlier disruptions to global oil supplies. Despite the slowdown, inflation remains above the European Central Bank's 2% target. Energy inflation eased sharply, while price growth also slowed across services, manufactured goods, and food. Core inflation, which excluded volatile food and energy prices, also moderated at 2.4%. Among the Eurozone's largest economies, inflation slowed in Germany, France, Italy, and the Netherlands, while Spain's inflation rate was unchanged. And in the United Kingdom, disability advocates are urging businesses and government to rethink workplace practices, arguing that greater flexibility could help bring more disabled people into employment. Speaking before the UK Women and Equality Select Committee, Scope's Executive Director of Strategy, Impact and Social Change, James Taylor, says remote and hybrid working have helped many disabled employees remain productive while managing their conditions.
On a surface level, as many steps as possible, really, as many things they can do. Some work Scope did a couple of years ago, surveying 2,000 disabled people. 71% said that being able to work remotely made it easier for them to manage their disability. And 60% who'd lost a job said they hadn't been offered any chance to try hybrid or remote working. So I think remote working is definitely one thing employers need to be considering more.
Taylor argued that employers should move beyond traditional ideals, saying flexibility should become the norm when employees are meeting expectations.
That government needs to think about is the way we experience work now is very different to how we experienced 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. I'd say the world of work now is completely different. I don't think legislation, guidance and policy has kept up with how people work and how people experience work. We've talked about back to office mandates, but we have a very rigid expectation of what people should be doing and the hours they should be doing it between. I think from our experience speaking to disabled people, and I think this is something that would benefit everybody, not just disabled people, having flexibility in when you do your job, where you do your job, as long as you're doing your job, should become the norm.
That was Scope's Executive Director of Strategy, Impact and Social Change, James Taylor. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
It feels so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It feels so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It feels so good right now. Don't never ever ever wanna calm down. No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now to recap our top stories in the local news. Government sets procurement rollout dates for Jamaicans' MSMEs. Regionally, Angola extends government relief measures for another 3 months. And internationally, EU and India seal landmark free trade deal to deepen economic ties. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rondine Williams. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.